Hey Chloe, I'm in the middle of working on my painting, so I had a little stopping point real quick where I need to pour out some more paint. So I thought I'd go over real quick what I use and kind of how I go about that to do paint to kind of make this a little bit less daunting for you since you didn't have any experience with that. So here's where I am right now, working on this. I'm painting in the background now, which is my last step. You can see how will that actually focus? Yeah, okay. How I'll paint the line work in, and then I actually go back and paint the interior, and then I paint the exterior, like the background part, and that creates kind of these like more complicated negative lines, I guess, which has an interesting look to it. Anyways, that's in progress. These Holbein Acryla gouaches are the ones that I was talking about. They look like this. The color that I'm using for the background is this misty green. Boom, boom. Also, you're welcome to borrow a couple of these colors too. There are definitely ones that I have doubles of. I was just thinking about that, see if you want to try these where you don't have to buy some of your own. Though I definitely suggest going to Blick, having a fun time, like picking out a few colors that you really like and trying to work with that limited color scheme. But I will usually just pour out a tiny bit. Even that's kind of a lot, but I'm doing the background, so I'm using a huge amount of this compared to normal. And then, let's see, I use a 4, which is generally what I use for most of the interior stuff and the background stuff. All of these, this is a Grumbacher Golden Edge. I always use synthetics that are made for watercolor. They have about the kind of feel that I want the most. I think some people will recommend things for sable and stuff like that, but I feel like with acrylics, that's kind of going overkill and stupid expensive. And then I'll use, the number 2 is what I use for most line work. And then I have, this was like a couple brushes my mom gave me. I'm not exactly sure what size this is. This is like a little sable one as well. This one's, yeah, that one can keep a really fine point to it. So that's what I'll use for like little detail stuff and touching up stuff at the end. And then I have this one flat that is a 6mm or 1/4 inch. And it's a Topman 1-stroke. It's what I'll use for some of the larger areas of the background, just to do it a little quicker. My basic process, like you can use this, it flows pretty well by itself, but I'll actually take some water, this little water cup that I made. It's one of the first things I ever made in pottery. I'll take some water and basically wet it down until I hit a point where it feels sort of like a melted milkshake, if that makes any sense. It just feels wet. It feels flowy, but it doesn't feel like watery to me. And that's usually the state that I'll use it in. And then that allows me to, let me set that real quick. Just paint stuff this way. And the paint itself, whenever it's fresh, will look a little lighter and look a little uneven. And then as this stuff dries, as this stuff dries, it flattens out entirely and gets a tiny bit darker. Here, let me turn it that way. There we go. The other great thing with this stuff, with the Holbein Acryla gouache, is that this is incredibly opaque. So if you mess up at any point, you can absolutely just paint over that with whatever color you're supposed to have there, fix it however. I actually use, as you've seen in like that rabbit piece that I did, I've used gouache before to fix mistakes that I've used in watercolor. At least this acrylic gouache I have. yeah, that's a couple little tips, and that's the process I use. So hope that's helpful.